But he's also very heavily involved in his own nonprofit, and he works with youth. And I told him I'd like him to explain what that program is as well. And he's written a number of books. He has presented internationally. So I hope that you will all join me in giving Chris Cannon a very warm greeting. He's going to talk about the power to create confidence on command. Chris Cannon.
One thing that I do want to say before I even start my presentation, this presentation is going to be a little bit different. You know, when you are in situations where you have families, where you've been in careers where you've been successful and then you've been laid off, or you've been the person that have been a manager of other people that you now have to go to ask for a job, that's very humbling. And I want to share a little bit about my background, and my presentation is going to be a little bit different today because it's not going to be the rah-rah, but I want to give you some different things that help me in my situation, because if I can just be transparent for a minute, most people, whether you're in corporate America, whether you're in education, no matter what it is, a lot of us wear masks sometimes. And a lot of times we wear those masks because of something that did or didn't happen when we were younger. And we sometimes feel like no matter how much success we have according to society, we still feel like we're not enough. We still feel like there's something missing. We're very successful at home, or we're unsuccessful at the job. We're very successful at the job, but we're unsuccessful at home. And so, if you will permit me, I just want to take off my mask and share some things with you that I've experienced along the journey that's in connection to where some of you guys are right now, but also what I did to overcome some of those challenges and obstacles. And different things that you can do even right now as you're preparing for different opportunities, different interviews. And even, maybe you might even realize that you want to start your own business. But I want to share some things with you that you can walk away as soon as you leave here and directly apply to your life and your situation. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
One thing that I want to share, just in connection with a lot of you guys, I lived in Michigan originally. And growing up, I never seen a healthy and a positive marriage. As a matter of fact, the only married couple that I saw was my aunt and my uncle, and they didn't even like each other. You know, it's like every time I was around, either he was in the kitchen, she was in the garage. She was in the basement, he was upstairs. She was downstairs, he was in the... It was like wherever one was, the other one was in a totally different place. And I remember telling myself as a little kid, if this is what marriage is like, I never want to be married. But as a teenager, even though I said I never wanted to be married, I told myself this thing, that I was always going to be faithful to 3 girls. So when I was in high school, I had 3 girlfriends. And I was faithful to all 3 of those girls. I didn't talk to anybody else outside of those 3. It's like, okay, I'm just going to have these 3 girlfriends, and that's it. And that was my thought process. That was and I wasn't like all these girls knew about each other. Like, hey, I'm Chris's girlfriend. No, they didn't know about each other. But I still considered myself to be faithful because I didn't talk to anybody else outside of those 3. Now, fast forward a couple of years, or a lot of years, if you will. Even though I said I didn't want to get married, the reason why I said I didn't want to get married isn't because of my personal experience when I was younger. And it wasn't that I didn't think or I didn't want to be married. It was that I didn't think that a happy marriage was possible for me. Sometimes we get in situations where we think something is possible for everybody else except us. And so for me, marriage was that very thing. Now fast forward a number of years. I meet a young lady. I fall in love with the young lady. She lives in Columbus, Ohio. I live in Detroit, Michigan. I'm a teacher. And at that time, I loved what I did. And it was very interesting because people have a perception, and some of it is a reality, that teachers, they don't make a lot of money. Well, I was a teacher, but I also had a part-time job. And I had a very great situation because every single month, after I paid all of my bills, I was saving $3,000 as a teacher with a part-time job. That was pretty good. And I went from saving $3,000 as somebody who was single to marrying my wife, inheriting a son, having a daughter, having a family, having a wife, to now making $1,200 a month. That lasted for 7 months. And what happened? I got laid off. I got laid off from a job that was paying me $1,200 a month when I was used to making more than $4,000 or $5,000 a month and saving $3,000 a month, and it was just me. But now I have a family depending on me, and I only make $1,200 a month, and I got laid off. And in that particular situation, I felt like a complete failure. Because I said, how is it that I'm single, I'm saving $3,000 a month, and then I get married, and I get fired from a job that's only paying me $1,200? What is my son going to think about me? What is my daughter going to think about her father? What does my wife think about me as her husband? And the internal conversation just kept playing over and over again. Anybody ever had a negative conversation with yourself before? You know, there's an old African proverb that says, if you don't have any enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. Sometimes we are our worst enemy. And so for me, when I got married, and I had this job paying me $1,200 a month, and I got laid off from it, that was a very dark time for me. It was a time where I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to, communicate and network with anybody because I felt bad about my situation. And it's weird because I don't know about you, but sometimes, like, we as human beings, we enjoy being mad sometimes. Like, sometimes if you are in a bad mood or something like that, and somebody try to cheer you up, and you get mad at them for trying to cheer you up because you want to be mad, finish out your time. Anybody ever experienced that before? Glad I'm not the only one. And here's the reality. When it comes to different situations like that, when it comes to failure, how many of us have ever failed at anything in our lives before? Okay, probably all of us. Now, here's a $1 million question. Who determines our failure? Who determines our failure? We determine our failure. And here's what's interesting. Because most of us agree that when you aspire to do something and you don't do it, you fail. That is not a fact, that's an opinion. Everybody repeat after me. Say, failure is only feedback.
It's only feedback.
So when it comes to you aspiring to do something and you don't obtain whatever it is that you thought you wanted to attain, you didn't fail. You just got feedback from a situation to help you go back to that situation different next time and be more effective at it. Anybody ever heard of Thomas Edison before? Cool. Here's somebody who attempted something 10,000 times. And here's what I love about what he said. He said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. So when it comes to failure, failure is only feedback. And I know some of you just like me. You might be the breadwinner of your family, or you might be the head of your household, or you might be that mother where your children are looking at you. Whatever the situation is, and you're looking for employment, or you're looking for a better opportunity than you currently have to help you better provide for your family, maybe you were just like me. And maybe you feel like you failed sometimes. But understand that it's only feedback. And failure, if you really think about it, failure is an opinion. And because most of us agree on the same opinion, sometimes we make opinions facts. And that's not true, it's just an opinion. So, 3rd grade, end of year, Miss Anderson's class. 2 days left of school. Miss Anderson takes 3 young men outside in the hallway. And Miss Anderson proceeds to tell these 3 young men that they have a choice to make. They're all going to be returning next year, same school, same grade. What class do you want to be in? Because you're going to be repeating 3rd grade again. Would you rather be in my class, or would you rather be in Miss Dewsbury's class across the hall? Well, they made their choices. And the following year, you had 3 young men that came to school very self-conscious about themselves. low self-esteem, trying to figure out how do I get out of this reputation of being dumb, being labeled dumb because I didn't even pass the 3rd grade. Out of those 3 young men, I was one of them. Miss Anderson was my 3rd grade teacher. And it was Miss Anderson who allowed me to see a larger vision of myself. Miss Anderson allowed me to overcome a lot of the fear that I had of what my friends might think of me because of the faith that she had in me. She allowed me to understand that I was more than my choices. She allowed me to understand that I was more than a little boy who couldn't read until he was in 3rd grade the 2nd time. She allowed me to understand that I was more than what my family expected me to be. Because in reality, my family expected me to be a failure because I was labeled dyslexic. I failed the 3rd grade almost twice, and I was expected to be a failure because my mother and my father was 14 and 15 when I was conceived. So I was expected to be a failure. And Miss Anderson allowed me to rise above all of that because she allowed me to understand that you never let somebody's opinion of you become your reality. And if that opinion of you is a negative opinion, even if it's yours, you never let that become your reality. Because sometimes we can be our worst critic. And so from Miss Anderson, I really learned that when it comes to failure, failure is really an opinion. It's not a fact. And sometimes the hardest person to convince that we are not failures is ourselves. Because the reality is this: when somebody tells us something, it's really not what they say. It's what we say to ourselves when they stop talking. If you go to a job interview and you think you did great, you just blew the interview out of the water, and the person looks across and they say, you know what, I've interviewed like 1,000 people this week, and you are by far the worst person that I've ever come in contact with. Now here's the reality. You have a choice to make at that moment. You can take what they say to heart and then you activate your negative conversation. And you start to think about how this person is right. Yeah, I'm ugly, I'm dumb, I'm fat, they're right. They saw, my weaknesses, I can't read. These are all things that I've told myself when I've gone to interviews and they didn't give me the job. But sometimes it's not about what they say, it's about what we say to ourselves when they stop talking. Now, I want to share something with you that I recently learned in the last 2 years that really helps me to what they call create a different state. Now, and I don't want to talk too much about psychology because I don't have a lot of time, but there's something called a pattern interruption. So you think about when you have negative thoughts about yourself, regardless of what it might be, whether it's at home or job or whatever, and you see 2 people on the side of the road talking, it's a husband and wife, they're all lovey-dovey, she loves him, he loves her, and they're just standing on the side of the street, talking, and you see him and he has a cup of water in his hand, and he goes up to drink it, but then he pours it in their face. Whatever you were thinking about at that time, you immediately have now a pattern interrupt because you're like, why did he throw water in her face? I mean, they were just talking nice and things like that, but it's an immediate pattern interrupt of what you just saw. So you take the focus off of whatever you was thinking. And here's something I want to share with you. If you ever get in a situation, and matter of fact, I would actually encourage this, before you ever go to a job interview, before you ever get on the phone, before you ever go home, even if home is a stressful situation for you and you don't have a lot of confidence there, I would encourage you to do something that's called eye scramble. Everybody say eye scramble. Eye scramble. So here's what eye scramble is. Whenever you have any kind of negative thought, whenever the negative thought starts to activate, whether it's because of what somebody said to you or you said to yourself, when you look left and when you look right, psychologists, they talk about how you activate the left and the right brain, creativity and logic. And so what you do, this is called eye scramble, you look to your left and you look to your right. And you do that consistently and you say your ABCs. So A, B, C, D, E, F. And I know that seems a little weird, but I promise you, when you think about this, it will stop. Whatever you're thinking about at that time where you have a negative thought going on. Because sometimes our imagination can run so wild that we end up losing the job, getting in a car accident, and end up doing 5 years in jail, and we've not even left our house yet. We create this whole experience in our mind that only exists in our mind. And so sometimes the best thing to do is just stop the thought before it takes root and before your imagination runs wild. But I scramble is something that I promise you, it probably sounds silly, like, what is this guy talking? But I promise you, if you do it, it will work. But every time you look right and you look left, you activate a different part of your brain. You activate your creativity. You activate your logic. And here's the thing, whenever you're thinking logical, you can't think emotional at the same time. Whenever we have negative thoughts about ourselves, those are based on our emotions. So when you activate your logic, you can't activate your emotion at the same time. You can only pick one up at the same time. Just like you can't be happy and sad. You have to choose one. And here's what's interesting. Everybody say choice. Choice. When it comes to our emotions, whether it's sad, angry, upset, it's all things that we choose. How many people have teenagers at home? I'll be praying for you guys. I got teenagers at home too, so I know about it. But think about this, and all you guys who don't, I want you to visualize yourself being a babysitter. But think about this. Those of us that have teenagers at home, I want you to picture you telling your son or your daughter to clean up their room for the 3rd time this week, and it's only Wednesday. And you've been telling them every single day. And it's like every single day they ask you for something different, and they didn't even do what you asked them to do before, so they're still asking you for something, and they don't even deserve it. But I want you to picture you come home from work, and you come upstairs, and you see your teenager just laughing on the phone. They got food on the floor, room is just dirty, and you're just furious. But before you go upstairs, your next door neighbor, they ask you, hey, can you watch little Johnny, while I go to the mall, because, we're going to be right back. So little Johnny just learns how to ride his bike. 6-year-old boy. He's excited. He wants to go outside. He wants to show you that he knows how to ride his bike. Reality is, he doesn't know how to ride that well. But we're not going to tell little Johnny that. But imagine little Johnny is waiting on you downstairs. And he's pulling at you, hey, let's go outside, let's go outside. But before you go outside with little Johnny, you go upstairs. And you see your teenager talking on the phone. They're laughing, having a good old time. They have no clue of how much you worked and sacrificed just for them. And you just have it up to here, and you're just upset. And you look at them, and you see how dirty the room is, and it's 3 days, and you've told them 3 times, in this week, and they've not did anything. And so you just kind of light into them. What have you been doing while you're on the phone? And it's like as you're talking, you hear your door open. And as you hear your door open, about 15 seconds later, you hear, and it sounds like somebody just got hit by a car. Your first thought is little Johnny. Now you think about this. How significant, how important is your son or daughter's room at that moment? 0. Are you even mad at them anymore? No. Because here's the reality. You picked up anger when you were talking to your son or daughter. But as soon as you heard that screeching noise, you dropped anger, and now you picked up fear. And see, we don't even look at it like we pick up anger. We put down fear. But when we look at our language, it becomes so powerful, because instead of saying, I am mad, when you say, I picked up anger, now you're empowering yourself that the very thing that I picked up, I can also put it down. We can choose anger, happiness, sadness. We can choose anything that we want to. But most of us think that we don't have that choice. And the reality is the only people that don't have choices are victims. And the only time that we're victims is we're victims of our own choices. But anger, happiness, we can pick those things up and we can put them down. But here's something I want to share with you, because when it comes to fear, everybody say 4. 4. There's 4 primary fears. Now, people might identify them in different ways, but there's 4 primary fears. There's the fear of success, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, and the fear of being wrong. Now, here's the reality. How many people have ever watched a movie and you try to anticipate what's going to happen next? All right? How many people watch the movie, you try to anticipate what happened next, and you were wrong? Now, how many people are like me when you anticipate what happened next and you anticipate wrong again, you try to justify why it wasn't that, but it's really going to be this next time? Here's the reality. That last fear, the fear of being wrong, I want you to repeat after me. Say, most people would rather be right than happy. Think about that. Most people would rather be right than be happy. And so when it comes to that fear of being wrong, a lot of us operate from this fear that really comes from our belief system. Everybody say BS. BS. He said BS. Now let me clarify that. BS stands for belief system. So now belief systems are actually created when you are a little child. And everything that happens to you after 6 years old is just stacked on top of the belief that's already established and it's already created. So now for me, I had a negative belief about myself. Because number one, I failed the 3rd grade. I was born to teen parents. I was labeled dyslexic. I couldn't read. So all of these things had a negative impact on the belief system that I had about myself. And so when it came to me seeking opportunities in the world, I never thought that somebody like me should actually have opportunities. So I was very insecure. I didn't have a lot of confidence. When I went for different job opportunities, if somebody else had more qualifications than me, sometimes I wouldn't even go to the interview because I'm like, I can't compete with that person. And so I actually robbed myself of opportunities before I ever gave somebody else a chance to reject me because I reject me first. So here's the reality. When it comes to your belief system, and when it comes to this whole fear of being right, and when it comes to most people would rather be right than be happy, sometimes you can get an opportunity that's a great opportunity, but if you don't feel like you're deserving of that opportunity because of your belief system, you will unconsciously find some kind of way to sabotage it. This happens all the time with lottery winners. That's why you hear about people statistically. They come in contact with millions and millions of dollars, and 3 years later, they're in worse financial situation than they were before they ever came in contact with this money. Why? Because they're uncomfortable having all this money. So they got to find some kind of way to get back broke. Because this is what I'm used to. This is what's comfortable for me. And here's the thing. When it comes to this whole fear of success, some of us would argue, why would anybody fear success? You have money, you have cars, you have houses, you have people reporting to you. That is great. But people fear success because of the pain attached to it. Sometimes for some people, success might mean that I lose my friends that I grew up with. Success might mean that my family members are going to talk about me because they think that I'm snooty because I now have this position. Success might mean that I really want genuine and authentic relationships, but I don't know if people are coming to me for my money or my position that I have. And so sometimes people sabotage themselves from success because of the pain and association that they attach to it. Now, here's something that's actually phenomenal. Whether it's fear, whether it's negative thought processes, whether it's choosing something that don't make us feel good, or whether it's, self-conscious about something, all of those things go back to our belief system, our BS. And here's the most powerful thing about that. Your belief system will argue with anything that goes against it. It will argue against anything that goes against it. So if somebody tries to give you an opportunity and you don't feel worthy of that opportunity, you will find some kind of way to disassociate yourself as to why you're qualified for that. But the thing that I also want to say as a way of encouragement is when it comes to your belief system can actually be changed by your language. You can actually reprogram your entire belief system with your brain. And I don't have enough time to go through everything, but the thing that I would really encourage you is that whenever you get upset, whenever you get angry, frustrated, or even fearful, I challenge you and I encourage you to communicate as if you picked it up. I picked up fear. I picked up anger. Because that communicates to your unconscious mind that you can also put it down. Now, one thing I want to do, I want to play a little bit of game. And I don't have a whole lot of time. And I need one volunteer, but I will say this. This game is safe. Because I know sometimes a speaker might ask you to come up and you're like, okay, what is this guy going to make me look crazy? No. This is a safe game, and it's a game that really Man, thank you. Can you come up and help me out? It's a game that really works on your confidence, but it also demonstrates the conversations with ourselves. Sir, what's your name?
David.
David, can you come on up? You guys give David a hand. So now, the game that we are going to play is called Expert Speaker. And now, David, there's 3 rules to this game. Anything that you say is correct, and I have to agree with you. So if you say, Chris, I am the President of the United States of America, I have to say, you know what, I already know that because I voted for you and I was on your campaign. So I know that you are the president. You're great. All right? The second rule is anything that I say is true and you must agree with me.
Okay.
But now, here's the most important rule of this game. It is my job to protect you. It is my job to make you look great. It is my job to never get a laugh at your expense. It is my job to make you feel as comfortable as possible and to make you feel comfortable about this subject that you're an expert in.
Okay.
So, here's the thing. David, can you go over here for a minute? Because we're going to give you a great introduction. You can stand right there. Now, here's what I didn't tell David. David is going to be an expert in a topic that you're going to choose. So, what is a topic that David can be an expert in that he knows nothing about?
British monarchy.
Hair braid? Basket weaving. Okay, basket weaving. Okay, all right, okay. So, I want you guys to help me to join one of the most authority figures in the world on basket weaving. He's written 3 books. You've probably seen him on NBC, VH1, CNN, everywhere. He is known all across the world as the foremost trainer in basket weaving, and he has 3 books on the New York Times bestseller on how to do basket weaving when you're flying a kite. If you guys can join me in welcoming David to the stage. Come on, David! So David, number one, it is an honor for you to be here because I know your schedule is really, really crazy and busy and things like that. So I'm just glad that you're even here. So we don't have a lot of time. So the first question that I want to ask you is, what age were you when you began basket weaving?
I was 10 years old.
Okay, okay. And what made you even get an interest in basket weaving?
Well, I went to Mexico and I saw wonderful baskets being weaved by people on the streets, and they were just weaving these baskets and selling them, and they were beautiful. They were absolutely beautiful.
Cool.
And I just decided, I really want to get into this.
That's excellent. Now, I know you have a long line of history, and I know from the start you said your great-grandfather was the first basket weaver to ever basket weave in the country. So how did that happen for him?
Well, actually, it wasn't my great-grandfather. I mean, he learned basket weaving from his father. And in what country? I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
The reason why he doesn't understand the question is because his great-grandfather, was actually the first person in the world. So it wasn't even in the country, it was like in the world. So that's probably what confused you, in terms of what country.
Yes, he was the first person in the world to have ever basket weaved. Yes,
Right.
He was one day in a grass field with a bunch of reeds. It was like on the side of the banks of a river, and he said, I can do something with these reeds. And so he started intricately started weaving them.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So,
And he noticed that he could actually carry things. After shaking them, he could actually carry things.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I know as a little boy he set you down. And can you kind of show us and give us a demonstration on how did he do that? I'll do it with you.
Sure. Well, there's just the basic basket weave where you just criss and cross the reeds.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then there's more intricate where you kind of want, like if you want to make a rim, you kind of like just kind of thread thinner reeds, like more grassy reeds, and you just kind of like thread them through, and you loop them through, and you go all the way around the edge, and that makes for a nice, once you get to the end, you might want to tie it up taut,
Right.
and so that kind of makes a bowl for you, and you can actually carry things with it.
That is phenomenal. Now, is that in your book, by the way?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I mean, your book was phenomenal. I read all 5 pages of it, by the way.
In that book, there are several different kinds of reads, several different patterns. I think that there are like 250 patterns that you can choose from in order to do your basket reading. Yeah.
That is phenomenal. Listen, David, I know you have a busy schedule, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but I really appreciate you coming here and taking a little bit of time out, because I know you got a tour scheduled to do your books, over in Canada, do a book signing. So I really appreciate you coming here.
Yeah, the Native Americans really in Canada are thoroughly fascinated by this. I mean, I understand that they actually did something quite similar to basket weaving. It was called basket weaving. Way before my great-grandfather ever did it.
Wow.
So
he popularized it, though.
well, yeah, I mean, he discovered it on his own, but
Okay.
actually these people were doing it long before he ever thought of it.
Wow, but but they never wrote a book on it though, so that still makes you the authority figure.
Actually, the Cherokees had their own language and their own language, and they did actually write books on basketball.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's,
No, thank you. We really appreciate all of the history that you've given us, even about the Cherokees and your great grandfather.
just our Cherokee, by the way.
Oh wow, okay. Hey, you guys give David a hand. Here's what's phenomenal about David. Number one, he came into an unfamiliar, unknown topic, and he owned it. The more David talked, the more he convinced all of us that he was really an expert. To the point where I was the interviewer, and I felt like he just kind of hijacked, the interview. Was like, hey, step aside, the Cherokees, And so he became more and more confident as he went on. But the thing that he did is he actually owned it. And one thing that I think about, I don't know David personally, but David has a gift to be in situations and try to make the best of those situations. Try to maximize the situation and try to be his best in those situations to also better other people.
20 years of substitute teaching.
Dear guys. But here's what's also phenomenal. When you think about the rules of the game, the first rule is anything that you say is right and I have to agree with you. Safety. Everything that I say is right and I have to agree with you. A little bit of uncertainty. But the last rule is I have to protect you. I have to make you look good. I can't get a joke at your expense. And that was probably something that also helped, in addition to his skills that he already had, to make him that much more comfortable in this activity. Now, what is the purpose of that? The purpose of that is this. It's a question. How effective could we be in any situation if we gave ourselves the permission to support us internally with the conversation that anything that we say is right? How effective would we be when it comes to our internal conversations if we say that, you know what, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to keep you safe. Because sometimes we create an enemy within that beat us up, and it's like we beat ourselves up and never even get the chance of life to do that job within itself because we are so hard on ourselves. We do something wrong, we beat ourselves up. We imagine doing something wrong, we beat ourselves up. And how effective could we be when we are in a situation where it's totally unknown? We don't know how the interview is. We don't know what this interviewer is thinking. We don't even know if he really wants to hire anybody right now. But if we just for a minute suspended our beliefs, suspended the negative conversation, and we gave ourselves the chance and opportunity to actually be safe with ourselves. Because sometimes it's not a matter of us not trusting other people. It's a matter of us not trusting ourselves. Because just like by a show of hands, I said, hey, how many people have failed in here? Everybody in this room raise your hand. And so you guys might be like me in some situations where you label yourself somebody who's a poor person that makes choices. And that happened to me because I would choose people to be in relationships with, and it seemed like everybody that I choose became the wrong choice. And it wasn't them, it was me. I have a problem with choosing the right thing. But I just think about how powerful it would be if we gave ourselves permission to be in a safe environment in our own souls, in our own minds, in our own spaces. And so when it comes to going forward, when it comes to confidence, and even when it comes to fear, just being honest and transparent, fear is something that is created by us. It's something that's imagined. It's something that's not real. And it's something that only lives in the future. Is there anybody here that's familiar with like farm life? Been on a farm? Hunting, camping, any of that kind of stuff? Okay. Does everybody know what a rattlesnake is? All right. Now, let's hope this never happens. But let's say somebody goes in the bathroom in this building and there's a rattlesnake on the ground. Now, let's hope this never happens, okay? But let's say this person goes inside the bathroom and there's a rattlesnake on the ground. What is that person afraid of? They're afraid of getting bit, right? Now did they get bit yet? No. But when they see the rattlesnake, they're afraid of getting bit. Now, what happens, and let's hope this never happens, but what happens if the snake does bite them? Now what are they afraid of? They're not afraid of getting bit anymore because they already got bit. Now they're afraid of dying. A future event, something that has not happened yet. And when it comes to fear, that's what it is. It's something that lives in the future. And sometimes when it comes to different job interviews, even preparing for a job interview, even a phone call, sometimes we have this imagination that runs wild and it goes against us. And the thing that we don't realize is that we give off a certain energy when we're talking to people, even if we're not face to face. You can be on the phone with somebody and they can feel your energy. How many people you've ever been driving in a car and you feel somebody looking at you? How many of you guys been driving in a car, you look at somebody else and they feel you looking at them, and then when they look at you, you turn away as if you weren't looking. So that is energy. And I don't have a lot of time to explain it, but that is energy. And so when it comes to us preparing for different job situations, we give off an energy. And sometimes you might get the job before you even interview for it. Sometimes you might get the job before you finish the interview. And sometimes you might not get the job based on your energy that you give off before the interview is done. But we all have an energy. And here's the thing. We decide on that as well. Just like we decide on fear, we decide on happiness, we decide on anger, we decide on all of our moods. And we pick things up and we drop things. And I want to encourage you that when it comes to a job interview, when it comes to an opportunity, I want to challenge you to not look at this as a job. Because everybody that goes for a job, they look at it as a job. And the thing that separates you from everybody else is when you come in contact with an opportunity, you don't look at it as a job. You look at it as an opportunity to build your legacy. Because when you look at it as an opportunity to build your legacy, even if it's not where you want to end up, because everybody has to start somewhere. When you look at it as a legacy, now you approach it differently. They feel something from you that you didn't feel before. They see something in you that they didn't see in any other candidates. And when you approach a job as this is an opportunity for me to build my legacy, not where I'm going to stay long term, but this is just a stepping stone to help me get to my legacy, now you're going to get what you're worth. Because here's the reality, and this is something I learned over the course of my life. Sometimes people that go to jobs and they just look at things like a job, they work just enough not to get fired. Because they don't like the job. They don't enjoy what they do, and they're very short-sighted. They don't see a future opportunity in it. So they work just enough not to get fired. And guess what? Their boss pays them just enough not to quit. But it's like when you go into an opportunity and you take advantage of that opportunity as if it's your legacy, now you're going to be a person that's irreplaceable. When it comes to positions, anybody can fill a position, but nobody can take your place. And when you approach a situation as if this is a part of my legacy, when it comes time or even a potential threat that you might leave this situation, they might come to you and say, name your price. What do we have to do to keep you here? Because you are such an asset that they don't want you to leave, because they know that things are going to be much different in a negative way if you're not around. By a show of hands, how many people remember 50% of what you learned in high school? I don't. I'm just raising my hand. How about 25%? Wow. I don't. I'm just raising my hand. What about 10%? Maybe 10? 10? Okay. I don't. I'm just raising my hand. Now, how many people remember that one person, whether it was elementary, middle school, or high school, that really made a difference in your life? They believed in you. When things were down, you can always think about them and get up. They always had something positive to say, and they made a positive impact in your life. How many people remember that one person? Now, here's the reality. You probably don't remember anything that they said. You probably don't remember anything that they did, but you just remember how they made you feel. And see, when it comes to a job interview, I'm going to call it a legacy interview, regardless of what job it is. It's not where you start, but it's where you finish. I challenge you to make this a part of everything that you do, that when you come in contact with any kind of employer, they might not remember what you said, they might not remember what you did, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. And it's so critical that when somebody comes in contact with you, that your interview with them is so powerful because you're thinking about your legacy, that when they leave you, they walk away with the spirit of you still in them. No matter how many interviews that they have. Even if they have 100, it was that one person. I just remember them out of everybody else. They just had this smile, something about them. And what people don't realize is that something about them, that's that energy that you have. Because you guys all know negative people. It's like you can just look on your caller ID and see them, and it's like, wow, you just get in a negative mood just because you see the number of who's calling. Because of the energy that they have. And you guys could have a positive energy in that same manner. Everybody repeat after me. Say, what kind of world would this world be if everybody in it was just like me? So I want you to think about that for a minute. What kind of world would this world be if everybody in it was just like you? Now, here's the reality. I don't want you to answer that question out loud because I know we have a lot of different answers. You know, some people's like, man, hey, let me call, grandma and tell her I love her because the world's about to end if everybody's like me. It's just... But other people might have a totally different thought process. But when it comes to your world, you create your world. Just like we create our failures. We choose our fears. But when you think about that question, sometimes it causes us to immediately think about a large responsibility. If everybody in the world was just like me, that's a large responsibility. And here's the thing. How many people have ever been given or presented an opportunity where you're worried about messing it up? Anybody? 9th grade year in high school, I was the only freshman that was on the varsity track team. And we had a really good track team. And I remember we had 2 people in the 11th grade and 1 person that was a senior. And he was a foreign exchange student from France. And we had an opportunity that was very, very unique. We had one of the fastest 4x2 relays in the state of Michigan. And I remember they put me on at the last minute. And I remember telling myself, Fred was his name, the foreign exchange student. It's like, Fred, he is so cool, he's so phenomenal, and I would love for him to have a great experience to take with him back to France if we actually win the 4x200 for the state of Michigan. And I remember all year we were practicing, we were winning, we were beating everybody, and then it came to regionals. And regionals is where you actually qualify to actually go to the state meet to see where you are. And in our regional meet, I was very nervous because I was a freshman. Freshmen have perceptions of messing up, dropping a baton, doing a lot of things wrong because they don't have experience. And I remember telling myself, like, man, I do not want to mess up. I do not want to mess up. And how many times have you ever told yourself not do something, and then you end up doing the very thing that you say not to do? Anybody? All right. That's just like there are certain things that we say to ourselves or certain things that other people say, and sometimes the negative in the conversation doesn't register. So if I said you don't see a red cat barking, you actually see a red cat barking, because don't is something that doesn't register sometimes. So I kept telling myself not to mess up, and my unconscious mind was actually preparing for what my language was saying, because unconsciously I'm programming my neurolinguistic side of me based on what I'm telling myself. So over and over and over, I'm at this track meet, preparing for one of the biggest track meets of my life at this time, and I'm telling myself not to mess up. And I remember we went over to the start, and I was the third leg, and lined everybody up. We went to our stations, and they held up the gun. And our first person just took off. You know, he was out front. He gave it off to the second person. And they kind of slowed down a little bit, but we were still up front. But everybody else was catching up. And then finally, it got the third leg, it got to me. And I remember just being under my start, and I looked, and then he came, I took off. Got the baton. Here it is, you know, I'm running. We're in first place still, but I'm pulling away from anybody. Now, I don't say that to try to make myself seem faster than what I really was, but it was really reality. You know, I was running faster than everybody else. And so I'm running, and I finally get to the 100-meter mark. I got 100 more meters to go. And all of a sudden, ah! Now, I've never ever been shot before in my life. But if I had to guess what getting shot feels like, it felt like this. And so what happened was, this is pausing the story. What happened is, my muscle, as I was running, my muscle in my leg wrapped around my hip bone. And it ripped my hip bone off. Okay? Now, pause back to the story too. So I'm running and I'm in pain, and immediately at that time, I'm slowing down. You know, it's like I went from first place to second place to third place to fourth place, to everybody's passing me. But I see Fred. And I got 100 meters to go. And I'm crying at this moment. I don't care what anybody think of me. You know, I got tears in my eyes. But I knew two things. I knew that, listen, if I stay in my lane, I won't get disqualified. And I knew that if I can just get to Fred, we still might have a chance. Now, I didn't know what had happened to me, but I knew that what I felt was something I've never felt before. And I'm running. And it's like at this point, I'm dragging myself, and I'm just barely limping, but I'm telling myself, listen, if I can just get to Fred. And even though I'm just saying to myself, if I can just get to Fred, all of these negative thoughts start to come into my mind. Well, you're a freshman. You got next year, the year after that, and the year after that. You know, you're young anyway. You got another opportunity. This pain hurts really bad. You're probably going to injure something else if you keep going, so why not just stop? So all of these things start playing in my head, but I kept focusing on Fred. And I said, if I can just get it to Fred, we still might have a chance. And the thing is this, as I finally got it to Fred, now at this point, everybody passed me up. And I'm thinking to myself, like, we have no chance whatsoever. Everybody passed me up, but I'm still going because I'm looking at Fred. It's like, and I finally reach out and I get the baton to Fred. Fred was phenomenal. But Fred was not a superhuman. There was only so much that Fred can do. Long story short, we went from last place to third place, even though I had 100 yards of running with a broken hip bone. We didn't qualify for state. And the thing that I learned from that is this. Sometimes, if you focus on what's in your lane and not focus on everybody else around you, and you focus on who's in front of you and who's depending on you and what you have to do, you are going to succeed at all odds. Broken hip bone, shot or not. You're going to succeed. And the thing that I think about is this. How many people in this room, you're focusing on things that's taking you out of your lane, and you're disqualifying yourself from the game? How many people in this room, you're focusing on something else outside of that one person who's depending on you? That if you can just keep going and you can reach that person, that you still have a chance, you still have an opportunity. And sometimes that one person, it might not even be somebody you know. Sometimes it might be somebody who's in your family. Sometimes it might be a friend. Sometimes it might just be somebody who observed you from afar and they really admire you. But the thing that I want to encourage you is this. Because we're all human, the moment you feel like quitting and giving up is the moment you must take a flashlight to your soul and borrow determination from today to get you through tomorrow. But never quit, never give up. Why? Because somebody will leave because you lived. They will rise because you rose. And they will keep going because you didn't quit. Because you're the example for somebody to follow. You're the solution to somebody's problem. And you're the answer to somebody's question. And when you get a pain, when you get an obstacle, when you get a challenge, and when you want to give up, and when you can justify giving up, if you give up, guess what? You give them permission to do the exact same. And just like my third grade failure, quote unquote, I grew up with a negative thought process and a negative belief system about myself for years. And it wasn't until I got in 7th grade where I met a high school or a middle school counselor. And she asked me a question that really I couldn't answer. She said, have you ever thought about when you failed the 3rd grade, that the grade that you're now in is really the grade that you were always supposed to be in? And this was just something to help you get there? That was like a light bulb just went off for me. Because I never thought about it like that. Wow, what if I am supposed to be in this grade? And what if I'm not dumb? What if I'm not stupid? What if this just happened to help me get to where I'm supposed to be? And here's the reality. Some of you guys, you might feel like you failed in situations. You might feel like you let people down. But where you are, how do you know this is not exactly where you're supposed to be? Because sometimes we are in situations that we look at as bad situations, and these bad situations are just to keep us from something worse or to set us up for something better. But the thing is this, it's all about how we respond to it. Everybody repeat after me. Say E plus R equals O. So picture this for a minute. E, event. R, response. O is outcome. So event plus R equals O. Here's the reality. A lot of times things happen to us, we have no control over it. And we think that we're victims of what just happened to us, not realizing that the R, that's the thing that we can control. We can control the response to whatever happened in our lives. And R controls and influences the O, the outcome. So no matter where you are, no matter what situation that you're in, events happen that you just can't have any control over whatsoever. But how you respond to that, whatever happened, will dictate and influence the outcome. And so the thing that I want to share with you guys in terms of whatever situation you might be in terms of opportunity, the first thing is this: never feel sorry for yourself. And I say that because that's the one thing that I did, and that never helped me to accomplish anything whatsoever. Now, it made me feel significant, but it never made me feel fulfilled. It never challenged me to do what I knew that I could do, but I didn't believe that it can happen to somebody like me. And so when it comes to different opportunities, when it comes to jobs, the first thing that you have to do is convince yourself before you ever try to convince somebody else. You have to believe it here. And you got to own it. And see, every single person in this room, you brought something to this world that was not here before you came. And it's different from everybody else. So it's unique. Nobody can take it from you. Nobody can own what you have. Nobody can take that. That's yours. And somebody needs that. And it's going to add value to somebody's life. Because here's the thing. When it comes to life, life is just like math. You know, people either add, subtract, multiply, or divide from your life. That's in all situations. And when it comes to different job opportunities, when you go into the opportunity as if this is a legacy, you're going to add to and multiply whatever that position is. But I just want you to understand that where you are right now is not a reflection of who you are as an individual, but it's a choice that you've made, but also it's a response that you can give to get you wherever you want to be. And I know it sounds cliche to some degree, and I've said this early on, but it's really not how you start, it's how you finish. And understand that every single thing is a choice, and we determine that choice. In closing, I want to share something with you that I actually wrote to encourage myself. Because sometimes when I travel, when I speak and I give different presentations, the reality is this. Sometimes I need to hear the same exact thing that I tell other people. Sometimes I need to see the very thing that I'm trying to show other people. And so I created something called the Pledge of Purpose. Because I think no matter who we are, sometimes we forget. We forget that we have a purpose. We forget that we're working on purpose. We forget that our purpose is not even for us, but it's to serve other people. Because the reality is this, whenever we start to feel down and depressed and we start to feel sorry for ourselves and we start to think, we're not enough, that's selfish. Because we're only thinking about us, but we're not thinking about the person that we're supposed to serve. So I want to share this with you. And as I'm reading this, every time I say I want you to insert yourself there. So when I say I want you to insert your name. But I really want you to pay close attention to the wording that it's saying, because I think it's very fitting for every single person in this room that's looking for an opportunity. Everybody say purpose. Purpose. So, in closing, I am a person of excellence who is destined for greatness. It is my birthright and great given opportunity to become a person of influence. The world is unfulfilled because it awaits the talents, skills, and abilities that only I can bring to it. No longer can TV or any form of media threaten to define me because my identity has already been established. I am a trailblazer who is on a mission with the gift that the world desires to experience. It is my obligation as well as opportunity to no longer go where the path may lead, but go where there is no path and leave a trail. I am courageous beyond measure, and my lifestyle is an example for others to follow who aren't sure of themselves so they too can become all that they were destined to be. I am honored to have such a significant responsibility that goes far beyond what my eyes can see. The greatness that I possess will positively impact generations of people to come. So every single day I look in the mirror, I will celebrate the fact that I was born with a purpose and have a passion for change. My influence will provoke a spark in others that would change the world one person at a time, starting with me. You guys have that kind of power inside of you. You have that kind of person inside of you that you can go to an interview and you can influence the person that's actually in charge of giving you a job. Because you have that kind of purpose, influence, and that kind of energy. And I really hope that you take that to heart. And in closing, the last thing that I just want to remind you is that no matter what, we have wars and we have battles. A war is something that ends. A battle is something continuous. It's something that we have to fight every single day. And one of the biggest battles that we ever have to face is this battle between our 6 inches, our 2 ears, battling our mind. But I want you to always understand the battle is not lost unless you accept defeat. Thank you.